Happy Friday, television family. 12th day of July, 2024 is upon us. This is Wake Up Wenatchee Valley, and I'm Dan Kuntz. A little on the hazy side from the Pioneer Fire. Continues to burn up above Manson. It is 72 degrees here in the big city. And stop me if you've heard this before, we have a heat advisory. It begins a little bit later on today, about noon. It goes through Sunday, may be extended into next week. Just sunny and hot with some haze. Sunny and hot, right around 100 degrees for the afternoon high, mid to upper 60s for the overnight lows. This pattern is not going to abate anytime in the near future. There's no rain, there's no thunderstorms. It's just July in the valley in north central Washington. Forecast details are on the way. There's lots of news to get to. Edgar Reinfeld is no longer captain. He is now chief. He was sworn in as Wenatchee's police chief last night at the city council meeting. We'll have that. In sports, the Mariners playing pretty good. 3 in a row now. They demolished the Angels yesterday down there in Anaheim. Highlights of that. Tough loss for the Apple Sox, though, last night. They had a lead going into the 9th inning, and they did not end the 9th inning with the lead. In other words, they lost. We'll have that for you. And a fascinating conversation in the back half of the program. It's a self-published book. It's called Conviction. It's written by Shane Flemons, who was convicted and spent some hard time in prison in Arizona and in Colorado, and he emerged out the other side pretty much in one piece. It's a fascinating story, interesting story indeed. Shane will be my guest in the back half of the program. You might want to pick up the book, too. We'll find out together when we talk to Shane in the back half of this Friday program. Let's not waste any time. We've got a lot to get to. Let's do our this stuff. You can see the haze up there above Birch Mountain. It's the farther north you go, the dirtier the air is. Right now in Chelan, your AQI is 90. That is moderate, but it's close to unhealthy for sensitive groups. Most of the really dirty air is out in the basin and to the north of us. And again, we have a heat advisory that begins at noon today. We'll talk about the fire weather forecast as well. In fact, let's go up to Badger Mountain and look down over the valley, and you can see the haze there. With the relative humidity being at its highest, and it isn't really very much, it's 50% relative humidity. This is about as hazy as it's going to get. Now, of course, when it gets warmer, the fire could pick up an activity, but the air gets thinner. So it's kind of a 6 of one, half dozen of the other kind of situation as we look out over the north part of the valley from Badger Mountain. Up to Hose Landing we go. There you go, the Columbia River. Little slice of Anaat there. This is on the Douglas County side of the river, basically directly across the river from Anaat. If we turn that camera to the left, you would see Anaat in the Anaat River Valley. Get those bugs out of there. There you go. You can see Earthquake Point pretty much right in the middle of your screen. So we say good morning to our friends up on top of Hose Landing. Boy, those bugs are driving me nuts. And this will give you an idea of how smoky it is. This is from our Slide Ridge camera, and you can just see the smoke hovering above the Manson area. Slide Ridge high above the south shore of Lake Chelan. You can see Wapato Point there in the right-hand corner of your screen, so it gives you an idea of, gives you some bearings about what's going on. You can see Roses Lake and the other two lakes, Wapato Lake there above Manson, and that is pretty smoky up there. But again, 90 on the AQI scale, which is right at the very top of the moderate. If it gets up to 101, it's unhealthy for sensitive groups, and we're talking about the air quality in Chelan. It's a little dirty out of the basin. Soap Lake has some dirty air. Spokane has some dirty air. Brewster, Twisp, things are a little dirty as far as air quality is concerned. Fire weather forecast. I hate to do this for you again, folks, but well, here it is. Yep, it's going to be hot. It's going to be dry. Not a lot of wind in the forecast, so it's not the three things that you need. We need wind to really get folks nervous, but relative humidity is going to be way down there. Temperatures up, overnight lows pretty mild, so, and the air quality, as we're under the influence of another high pressure ridge, is not going to be very good. In fact, it's probably going to get worse before it gets better. Climate Prediction Center sent out their long-term forecast. This is for July 17th through the 21st. And as you can see, we have about a 60% chance of seeing temperatures above normal for this time period, the 17th to the 21st. And the same time period as far as precipitation is concerned, we have about a 40% chance of seeing precipitation above normal. So maybe kind of neutral, but just the slightest chance of a little more precipitation. We shall see. I think maybe the temperature forecast might be a little more accurate than that, but ours is not to question why. They're pretty good at doing it. We've had 9 consecutive days of our high temperature above normal, and guess what? That is going to continue. From the National Weather Service, the heat advisory begins at noon today, 102. For the afternoon high, we hit, for the record, 96 yesterday, which was considerably cooler than what we've been having. 68 for the overnight low tonight, very little wind to speak of. We do it again tomorrow, 101. Nice light breeze, 68 for the overnight low Saturday night. Sunday, sunny and hot, about 100. 98, 99, 101, 101. I've lived here a long time. I can't remember the last time we've had this lengthy period of sunny and hot weather, certainly well above normal. This is going to be the forecast for as far out as we can see. I know it's the middle of July, but we occasionally have the break, cooler weather, maybe a little bit of rain. It happens once in a while, but not yet. Anyway. That's your forecast. We're going to take a break. When we come back, the news. You're watching a Friday edition of Wake Up Wenatchee Valley on the NCW Life channel. The family at the Epladolin want to help your loved one feel at ease in their new home environment. Epladolin offers beautiful one-bedroom and studio apartments. Residents enjoy 3 delicious home-style meals a day, laundry service, housekeeping service, and encouragement to make themselves cozy in their new home. Epladolin welcomes your family to come and visit their family. Epladolin, independent and assisted living. They make the complicated easy for you. Call today for a tour.
As sheriff, I arrested rioters, rapists, and mass murderers. Locked up human traffickers who preyed on women and children. On my watch, everyone was accountable. Despite being the Attorney General for 12 years, Bob Ferguson does not take responsibility for the rapid increase in crime and homelessness, businesses moving out of state, and jobs lost. And he thinks he deserves a promotion?
Dave Reichert.
Are you dealing with a pest or weed issue and you just don't know what to do?
We use the best pest control methods approved for areas with kids and pets.
Whether it's rats, mice, ants, or spiders,
or something else altogether.
We provide the coaching and solutions you're looking for.
And you can know that your dollars are supporting a local, family-owned and operated business.
Allow us to help you get back to living healthy and pest-free. Harvest Valley Pest Control.
Most of us are in touch with the internet in one way or another all day long. A fast, secure connection matters. It keeps us entertained, informed, and in touch. Local cares about your connection. We know strong, reliable internet with your choice of speed makes life better. If you need fast, reliable internet, or maybe an upgrade, or you just have questions, connect with us by visiting localtel.com or call 509-888-8888 today.
Lots of sunshine outside of the haze at 72 degrees, triple digits, right around 100 today, right around 100, right through the middle of next week. No relief in sight, just sunny and hot. It's 9 minutes after the hour. A lot of police, a lot of law enforcement, and good old-fashioned regular folks were on hand last night at Wenatchee City Hall as Captain Edgar Reinfeld was sworn in as the new police chief for the city of Wenatchee.
And that I will, to the best of my ability, diligently and impartially,
perform all the duties of the chief for the city of Wenatchee, Chelan County, Washington.
Perform all the duties of chief for the city of Wenatchee, Chelan County, Washington.
You're going to do a great job. Thank you.
Chief Reinfeld is 51 years old. He's been with the Wenatchee Police Department for quite some time. Of course, he now replaces the retired Chief Steve Crown. Afterwards, we caught up with Chief Reinfeld to talk about his new job.
I have been here my entire life. This is where I grew up. This is where I live. I moved away for a couple years to go to college. Didn't do very well at that. Came home. Went to college again later. But this is the community I grew up in. This community I live in. This community I love. I live right in the middle of the city. I'm not moving from there. What impacts people in our community who call the police department impacts me as a citizen as well. And it's very important to me to move quickly, to be decisive, and to take care of the things that need to be taken care of for the safety of our community.
The suspect in the murder of an East Wenatchee woman is working his way back to the Wenatchee Valley, but it's going to take quite some time before he actually gets here. 22-year-old Ashton Bunting Jr., as you know by now, is accused of killing his domestic partner, Cynthia Ring, last month at the apartment they shared on Eastmont Avenue, and then apparently drove all the way to Ohio ahead of the police manhunt before he was arrested by a state trooper. Ring's 4-year-old child was found alone at the apartment where his mother's body was found. Bunting was held in Ohio for a couple of weeks, but East Wenatchee Detective Sergeant Ben Faulconer says the suspect is now in custody of the U.S. Marshals. They are relaying him from one jail to another as they move him back to our state. Faulconer says that there is no set date for Bunting's arrival at the Chelan County Regional Justice Center. He's going to await trial, of course, in Douglas County, charged with second-degree murder in the death of Cynthia Ring. The 60-year-old treaty with Canada that governs the use of the Columbia River may soon be modernized. The United States and Canadian governments said yesterday they've reached an agreement in principle to amend and renew the Columbia River Treaty, which was established in 1964 and sets the standards for water use, hydroelectric power, and salmon management along the Columbia River's 1,200-mile length. The flood control provisions of the existing treaty expire this year. Negotiations to modernize the agreement have been going on since 2017. Authorities say the agreed changes will emphasize the priorities of indigenous communities in both countries. It would allow the U.S. to keep more of its own hydropower, and it would give Canada increased access to export its clean energy to the United States. City of Leavenworth is going to pay just about $2 million for property that formerly housed a car wash and an oil change business. The City Council approved a purchase and sale agreement with the Wilkelman LLC. They're going to acquire the former Cascade Quick Lube and Car Wash at the intersection of Highway 2 and 14th Street. The city originally expressed interest in the property back in 2018, but they needed to conduct an environmental site testing first. That's done. A $200,000 grant from the Washington State Department of Ecology paid for the testing and confirmed that the property is free from contamination. The sale will close in early August. The city will use the property to expand their Public Works campus, which is right next door. Also gives the city of Leavenworth a chance to increase the capacity of their nearby wastewater treatment plant. The Wenatchee Valley Fire Department is going to host some public meetings later on this month for residents to learn more about the fire benefit charge. It'll be on the August 6th primary election ballot. The fire department is asking voters to consider the benefit charge, which the department says is, and I'm quoting now, a fairer way to fund emergency services compared to the current funding through property taxes. The benefit charge is calculated based on a building's square footage, so smaller buildings like a house would be charged less than larger commercial or industrial buildings that have a higher risk of fire. The first meeting is scheduled for Station 1, that's in East Wenatchee. It'll be next Wednesday, July 24th at 6 o'clock. The second will be at Station 11. That's in Easy Street in Wenatchee on Saturday, July 27th. The information sessions will take place inside the apparatus bays, and they will be serving light refreshments. And Link Transit has received $4.5 million in federal funding to achieve 100% electrification of its urban fixed route buses. The funds are part of roughly $1.5 billion that's been set aside to support the 117 projects across 47 states to further the Biden-Harris administration's goal of zero emissions by the year 2050. Roughly 80% of the funded buses will run on zero or low emission technology to help further reduce air pollution. Excuse me. The award allows Link to offer completely electric urban fixed route buses and also allows them to buy 5 new electrical vehicles for rural routes. Link says there's a 16-month delivery timeline for the new buses, so it's going to take a little while before residents in our area will see the electric buses. It'll probably be February of 2026. That's the news at 1:15 the hour. If today is any indication, It's going to be a busy news day, and then we'll get all the news together for you and send it out over the airwaves. The NCAA Life Evening News at 5, 6, and 10 on TV. 5, 6, and 10 tonight. If that isn't fitting your schedule, our news is up and running on the web. It'll be posted just about 5 o'clock, 4:35, right around there on our homepage, ncwaalife.com, on our Facebook page, on our app, on our YouTube page. If you haven't downloaded the app, you can do it right there. Pick up your phone and QR away. And if there's something out there that you think is newsworthy, you get a hold of us. You send us an email, news@ncwaalife.com. Mariners win big, but the Apple Sox, toughened last night at home. Sports is next. You're watching Wake Up in Wenatchee Valley on the NCAA Life channel.
My favorite thing about living at Prestige is the activities. I think it's just so good for you to have a group that you can have fun with.
I think if you keep moving and you have a social life, you're going to live longer. And that attitude is fostered by the activity director and the managers. It's a good place, it's a happy place, and it's where I plan to stay forever.
Me too.
Since 1932, Camp Seneca, nestled on the beautiful shores of Lake Wenatchee, has provided children grades 1 through 12 with the ideal location for kids to learn new skills, have fun, and make friends while creating memories that will last a lifetime. Camp Seneca's rustic log cabins and their staff serve to provide each group a unique summer camp experience. Register for Camp Seneca today, www.campfirencw.org.
When you buy tires at Les Schwab, you're getting more than just tires. You're getting America's best tire warranty, 60-day satisfaction guarantee, no hassle road hazard protection, and free maintenance for the life of your tires. So if something happens to your tire on the road, we'll fix it, or we'll replace it, no questions asked. Other places make you pay extra for that kind of protection, but at Les Schwab, it's included with every set of tires, because more warranty means less worry, and nobody stands by their tires like Les Schwab. Get more from Les.
18 minutes after the hour, for the second time in 3 games, Cal Raleigh homered from both sides of the plate. J.P. Crawford had 3 hits, and the Mariners steamrolled the L.A. Angels 11-0 last night. Seattle has now won 3 games in a row.
Crawford at second base, the 2-2. Hit hard through the right side for a base hit. Crawford is being waved home. The throw from Pilar to the plate is cut off. JP scores standing, and 2 batters into this one. The Mariners take a 1-0 lead. Big chopper, Guillaume, a fair ball, steps on third, a mile-high throw. It hits off the railing, and then Karam's into right field. And the umpire is blowing this dead and awarding 2 bases. That hit off something and then hit off the railing? Did it go inside?
I think it just went off the railing.
Yeah, I'm surprised this was blown dead. Oh, no. It went beyond the railing, did it not? And caromed off something inside, so that is why it was called dead. So a good call on the field. This ball is laced to the gap in left center field. Moniak can't get to it, plays it on a hop. Raley scores. France sprints across home plate. And the Mariners keep on pushing runs across in the first inning. They lead it 4-0. And Jorge Polanco has had his maybe best 3 games in a row all season long now.
Is really swinging the bat well and does a nice job on this pitch. It's elevated up in the zone, and with 2 strikes and 2 runners in scoring position, that's a big hit right there.
This ball is smoked down by the pole. It is fair and gone. An absolute screamer from Cal Raleigh. Take cover. Number 18 left a tracer behind it. 114 off the bat, and it's 5-0 Mariners.
Cal gets the trident down in the dugout, and there's the swing, and there is the reason why. He hits just a missile right down that right field line. You see it just inside the pole.
On the button out to center field, Julio slides. That ball moved on him at the last minute. It looked like he makes the catch. Julio makes the catch on Moniak, who had a catch somewhat similar to that earlier today. And there is out number 3. This ball is a rocket to right field. J.P. Crawford bangs it off the signage for a home run. The Mariners are slowly turning this one into a laugher. 7-0 in the 4th inning.
That's 2 innings in a row. And J.P. Crawford, 108 off the bat. He continues to hit left-handed pitching well. This time he pulls it.
One of the Mariners' top prospects, infielder. Through the left side for a base hit. The Mariners tack on here in the 6th inning. Polanco scores. What a night it has been for J.P. Crawford. A double, a homer, and now a ribby single. 8-0 Mariners. Has he done it again? Has he done it again? He does! For the 3rd time in his career and the 2nd time in just the last few days. Cal Raleigh has homered from both sides of the plate. Simply remarkable from Cal Raleigh. He has been wearing out that trident. Cracked into center field. Robles given some ground. He makes the catch, and that's the ball game. The Mariners.
Game 2 of the 4-game series is tonight. Brian Wu is set to make his return. He's missed his last couple of starts. He's been a little banged up. He'll take on All-Star Tyler Anderson, who will start for the Angels. Good thing the Mariners won because the Astros won too. The Astros have been playing really good baseball, but the Mariners still have a 2-game lead over Houston. Astros knocked off the Marlins 6-3, and Boston knocked off Oakland 7-0. The Edmonton Riverhawks scored 3 runs in the top of the 9th inning to overcome a 2-run deficit, and they beat the Apple Sox 6-4 last night at Paul Thomas Senior Stadium. The voice of the Apple Sox, our friend Joel Norman, has the details.
The Wenatchee Apple Sox took a 4-3 lead into the 9th inning Thursday night, but they could not hang on as they allowed 3 runs in the frame thanks to 2 errors and fell in the rubber match to the Edmonton Riverhawks 6-4. The Apple Sox had not lost a game yet this season when leading after 7 or 8 innings, as they were 17-0 in that span, but they could not stretch it to 18-0 as their only 2 errors in the last 2 days came just about at the worst time. Edmonton scoring 3 times in that frame. Wenatchee threatened in the bottom of the 9th inning, but could not quite get it done. The Apple Sox scored the game's first 3 runs with a big bottom of the 1st inning, but then would give that lead up with 3 runs scored by the Riverhawks at the top of the 4th. Evan Cloyd hit an RBI single in the 5th inning to put the Apple Sox back in the lead, and again they would hang on to that lead until a little bit of trouble in the top of the 9th inning. Wenatchee will play non-league action on Saturday and Sunday night against the Cascade Collegiate League Showcase team, and then after that, it's the All-Star break, as 4 Apple Sox players, Evan Canfield, Quincy Vassar, Max Hartman, and Jonathan Fitz, will be heading to Bellingham on July 17th. With your Apple Sox update, I'm Joel Norman.
Thank you very much, Joel. We appreciate it. As Joel already mentioned, the Cascade Collegiate team will be in town for non-leaguers Saturday and Sunday. To the West Coast League scoreboard from our friends at Les Schwab, Port Angeles scored a late touchdown to beat Kamloops 14-7. Bend got by Cowlitz. Portland defeated Springfield, Ridgefield over Walla Walla, and Corvallis sweeps a doubleheader from the Pippins of Yakima Valley. And finally, for the 3rd time in a little over a year, the Wenatchee Wild have a new head coach. Of course, last summer, the Winnipeg Ice became the Wenatchee Wild, and they brought Kevin Constantine on board as head coach. But in September, Constantine was suspended indefinitely by the league after investigation found, quote, derogatory comments of a discriminatory nature were made. So they brought in Roy Summer. Was brought in mid-season to replace Constantine. He led, of course, Wenatchee to the Western Hockey League playoffs in the team's first season in the WHL. The Wild have announced that Summer has moved on, and they have hired Don Knackbauer to lead the club. Knackbauer is a former NHL player, 30 years in coaching, 692 career wins between coaching the Thunderbirds, the Americans, and the Chiefs in the WHL. That makes him the 3rd winningest coach in Western Hockey League history. Knackbauer comes to Wenatchee after coaching the Calgary Wranglers of the American Hockey League as part of the Calgary Flames organization. He'll bring with him Dan Johnston as an assistant coach. Of course, Chris Clark and Lee Mendelson are still with the Wild. Welcome, Coach Don to the Valley. And those are just some of the games that people are playing at 25 minutes after the hour. You're going to see this all over social media today and tomorrow because a lot of national fast food chains are all on board because today is National French Fry Day. Today. I know McDonald's, Wendy's, I think Burger King, there's like 7 or 8 fast food joints that are all offering either free French fries or reduced French fries. National French Fry Day, always the second Friday in July, and by golly, that's today. The Belgians and the French have an ongoing dispute about where French fries were invented. The original story was they were from Belgium. Nobody really paid much attention to them until World War I, when American soldiers stationed in Belgium fell in love with the French fries. And even though it was in Belgium, the official language of the Belgian army was French, so the American soldiers called them French fries, even though they originated in Belgium. The folks in France think otherwise. By the way, we love our French fries. We eat over 30 pounds of French fries per person per year. Let me repeat that. 30 pounds of French fries per person per year. That is a lot of French fries. Today in history, July the 12th, oops, there's a quick little A roll there. We'll get to that in just a little bit. July the 12th, 1958, it was 66 years ago. The Quarrymen, which at that time consisted of John Lennon, Paul McCartney, George Harrison, Colin Hanton, and Duff Lowe, the Quarrymen, who would become the Beatles, wanted to know what they sounded like. What do we sound like? Because they only knew by playing live with each other in living rooms and rehearsing. They figured we need to make a record. So they went to the only professional recording studio in all of Liverpool. It was owned by Percy Phillips. They forked over their 16 pounds, 10 shilling, and they recorded 2 songs. They recorded an original song, In Spite of All the Danger, and they recorded the Buddy Holly classic, That'll Be the Day. Percy Phillips pressed a 10-inch shellac disc from the tape, and then poor Percy Phillips erased the tape. Probably wishes he hadn't done that. And the 5 members of the Quarrymen said, we'll all share ownership of this 10-inch record, our first ever record. John had it for a week. He gave it to Paul, who had it for a week, who gave it to George, who had it for a week. George gave it to Colin, who had it for a week. There's the actual record. And then Colin gave it to Duff, their piano player, and Duff Lowe kept it for the next 23 years. By that time, they had forgotten about it and moved on. It's the only copy that ever exists ever of the first record by the Beatles. It is now owned by Paul McCartney, who bought it from Duff for an undisclosed amount in 1981. Quite possibly the most valuable record in the world. Was recorded 66 years ago today by the Quarrymen. 51 years ago today, a fire destroys the entire 6th floor of the National Personnel Record Center in Overland, Missouri, right next to St. Louis. This is where all the military personnel records were kept. 18 million official military personnel records were kept there. They were all destroyed. When the building was built in the mid-50s, it didn't have a sprinkler system, it didn't have smoke detectors, didn't have heat detectors, didn't have firewalls. It was basically a big building full of paper. It burned for 4 days. The cause of the fire was never determined, but pretty much every military record before 1973 burned 51 years ago today. And finally, you briefly saw the footage. This is the 45th anniversary of Disco Demolition Night at Comiskey Park. Here is the footage as we talk about the 60,000 fans who came to Comiskey Park for a twilight doubleheader. The price of admission was 98 cents if you brought a disco record that they would blow up between the 2 games. They had a huge bins outside of Comiskey Park to put your record in. Well, the bins filled up, so the fans just brought the records into Comiskey Park and they started flinging them all over the place like frisbees. There were 15,000 fans that couldn't even get in, so they climbed the walls, as you saw there. The players for the Tigers, the opposing team, said they were worried. In fact, when the Tigers were on defense out in the field, they wore their batting helmets because people kept throwing stuff at them. Finally, between games, Steve Dahl oversaw the destruction of thousands and thousands of disco records. in center field. The fans by this point were pretty liquored up, as you might imagine, and about 7,000 fans stormed the field. They stormed the field. They tore out the grass. They built campfires. They made off with the bases. They dug up home plate and ran off with it. They stole the batting cage. This went on for about an hour, and finally the umpires said the field is unplayable, and the White Sox, after losing the first game to the Tigers 4-1, had to forfeit Game 2. Disco Demolition Night didn't think that one all the way through. It's a legendary baseball story. Birthdays. The man who was the dictator of the Roman Empire, not very long, only about 6 years. Julius Caesar was born to the state in 100 BC. He brought on a bunch of reforms that other members of the Roman Council didn't like, and so they stabbed him to death at the age of 55. But some of his ideas are still incorporated in governments today. Julius Caesar, born in the state in 100 BC. George Eastman, yeah, the guy who founded Eastman Kodak, was really, really smart. When cameras got to be really big at the turn of the 20th century, everybody was into making cameras, but nobody was into making film. So he said, I'll go ahead and make film that's both good and affordable. And by doing that, he became de facto business partners in the companies that were making cameras. This is like, I mean, it's the equivalent of having a really great stereo system and no speakers. George Eastman said, if you're going to have cameras, you're going to have film. And he pretty much cornered the film market and became a bazillionaire. And finally, we miss the late, great Christine McVie of Fleetwood Mac. She died in November of 2022 at the age of 79 in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. She's gone, but the music lives on. Special thanks to our platinum sponsor, Alpine Air. For heat and air, call Alpine Air. My air conditioner has not stopped running for 8 days, but it's still working. Maybe I should turn it off. Anyway, if it's going to break down, and who knows, it just might, my first call is going to be to Alpine Air, as should yours. For heat and air, call Alpine Air. And special thanks to our friends at Prestige Senior Living at Colonial Vista, their main campus in Wenatchee, and their satellite campus in East Wenatchee. Mike Bernardi has an opinion about inflation. He may sound a little inflated himself. And then a fascinating interview with a gentleman, a local gentleman who went to prison and wrote about it. His name is Shane Flemons. His book is Conviction, and he'll be my guest when we come back. You're watching Wake Up Wenatchee Valley and Nancy. When your heating or cooling system is giving you trouble, call the Diagnostic Doctor from Dick's Heating and Air Conditioning.
Here's the culprit right here.
All joking aside, when you call Dick's, you're calling 35 years of experience at customer service right here in the Wenatchee Valley. Dick's strongly believes in repairing before replacing, and they service all major brands of HVAC units.
Now there are even more reasons to meet at the Pybus Market. Outdoor dining and tastings, the fabulous Farmers Market, Saturday artisans on the concourse, and your favorites all week long. No matter the reason, it's always time to meet at the Pybus Market. Pybus Market, where community meets.
Hey, this is Mike, Mad Dog Magnotti, and everybody is entitled to my opinion. Now, I'm not much of a fan of liberal or progressive politics. I'm really not. And whether or not it's this current administration's fault, like all of us, I don't like the way inflation is going, and it's disturbing how expensive everything has become. But I'll tell you this. I will not sell my soul and vote for a morally corrupt individual for president just because I want lower gas prices. This is Mike Mad Dog Magnotti, and that's my opinion.
Hi folks, welcome to Save Mart. How can we help you today?
We're looking for a recliner.
Okay, right this way. Go ahead and move this chase on the other side. You can lift this up to time warranty.
Great, I want that one. I like that one.
That's a great choice.
And I want this one as well.
Okay.
And I definitely want this one.
You'll find it at Save Mart. Full service at a low, low price.
If your chair is comfortable and still fits, don't toss it. Reupholster it at Wenatchee Upholstery. The sky is the limit. From new upholstery in your favorite car to upgrading your seats in the boats. Everything old can be new again when you call Joe. Personalize your golf cart, grandma's chair, your favorite bar stool. Trust your treasure with Wenatchee Upholstery.
Want to stay up to date on the latest news in the area? Tired of paying for your news? Download the NCW Life app now. No subscriptions necessary. Get news, weather, sports, and more live as it happens. Available for iPhone and Android in the App Store. Local news at your fingertips. Don't miss the stories that matter to you. Stay connected. Download the NCW Life app now.
Welcome back to the program. Once again, give Doc Severinsen and the NBC Orchestra a big hand. The opening for Phyllis Diller, I believe, at the Aladdin Hotel and Casino in State Line, Nevada. My guest this morning is a man, a Wenatchee native, Shane Flemons, who wrote a book that I read last night. It is not an easy read because the topic at hand, well, the topic at hand is, Shane, you went to prison.
Yes, sir, I did.
Yeah, and you came out on the other side, and most people don't, for that matter. Before we get into the gist of the book, it's called Conviction. He self-published it. There's been a follow-up to this, by the way. We'll get to that in just a little bit. A little something about Shane Flemons. Give us a little bio about yourself, your background, where you came from.
Well, I'm a native here in Wenatchee. We had a farm in Rock Island, tore down, now houses, but we grew up on a farm, fishing, hunting, deers, elk, horses, cows, pigs, you name it, we had it on our farm. And we grew up, and my mom lived in East Wenatchee. She's a school teacher, Carrie Brett, and I played in Rock Island mostly, rode motorbikes, and I ended up
a typical middle American, middle class
Wenatchee
upbringing. Sure, yeah.
A lot of orchards in Wenatchee, so
Sure.
I mean it was average.
Mm-hmm.
And then I decided to go fishing for real, and I started king crabbing and longlining and seining, and I became friends with a lot of the guys on the Deadliest Catch, and here I am.
And you worked your way up to Alaska, which is a pretty good place to go if you want to make a lot of money really quick. It's hard work. We've all seen the Deadliest Catch, but you went up to Alaska to work the commercial fishing industry.
Yes, sir, I did.
And you want to take it from there as we get deeper into this story?
Well, I fished ever since I was like, little kid. And then when I hit Alaska, I was around 21. I met One Eye, which you might have read in the first book, which was a sea lion. Well, I didn't realize that they go crazy over red. And that's what triggered his, anxiety towards me and tried to, attack me. But
you were literally walking along the dock and the sea lion jumped out and tried to
literally
go after you.
I was wearing a UNLV sweatshirt. I just came back from Oregon. I used to live in Eugene. And I had this red UNLV sweatshirt on. And I was walking on the dock first year in Kodiak, and here he came. And I didn't realize he was One Eye. But anyways, I was walking on the dock, and here he came, making this horrible noise, and I started running and back and forth, and next thing you know, he's on the boat with me. I'm in the, the galley, wondering what the heck did I do, and I looked down, and I was like, the shirt. I threw it off, and I seen him many years after that, but that first experience was scary.
That might have been a bit of a harbinger of the events that followed that, because your life went real sideways real quick like.
That was when I was 21, and then when I was 30, I think it was 33. That's when I was in Kodiak again with one of the experiences, and this tragic event happened.
You went to prison. You went to prison in Alaska. Prison is bad anywhere. Anytime you're holed up in the state pen. Alaska worse than others, and you're very frank about your opinion in this about the Alaskan penal system.
Well, it's not just me. I mean, the statistics prove it. So recidivism is detrimental to the United States, and every state's different. Well, Alaska's ranked number 2. They're ranked number 1 for money from the United States government, but they're ranked number 2 for recidivism, basically meaning very few people come out of the system a better person.
Or they come out and go right back in again.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, you're on this called paper. You go to prison, you get out, you're on paper, and then you go right back in. It's just the way the system works. Well, when I was in there, I started studying it. I became a law librarian, and some of them didn't like that. But then I started doing GEDs for the guys. I started realizing what was causing, this problem. So I started teaching guys GED. So I had a class, and more guys were graduating than any, in the history of Alaska. Well, a lot of them started becoming better citizens. They started calling their mom. They wanted to stop using drugs. And anyways, it wasn't me, obviously, but that's when I finally started learning the Bible. I started reading it, and not in my first book, but I did run some stuff when I was in Seward for a while. And it wasn't all that great, but I mean, I started learning the system. Why are we, what is going on? Why are we coming back to prison? And then I met an officer that was saying the same thing. Anyways, we became pretty good friends. We still talk. Matter of fact, he's got a family up in Eniat that one of his grandfather's tombstones were knocked down by somebody, and I went up and looked at my son and I. And so, I mean, it wasn't just all bad. It was crappy, but it wasn't all bad.
It was, well, if you read the book, and by the way, I'm really glad it doesn't have illustrations. Crappy is not the word I would use. There's 2 schools of thought for people who are incarcerated for serious crimes against civilization. Either you're just going to be punished for what you did, you done wrong, and you have to go to prison for doing it. Or there's those who say, okay, you're in prison, and it could be a combination of punishment and rehabilitation. Is try and get so when you eventually leave the penal system and go back out into society, you can become a contributing member of society. And there's those who say you just should be punished. And it's the people who just say you should be punished. When these people leave the system, they're much worse off than they were when they went in, because now they're just angry and drug-addled, and we're not doing anybody any favors doing that, are we?
It's each of their own. You go to prison, for instance, you're going to go in as that person. Who you hang out with determines who you're going to be in the end. The only reason why I changed, which I fully believe, is because the guy upstairs, the Lord Jesus Christ, because I wasn't doing the right things. I wasn't forced, but one day there was a hit on a guy in the prison, and I'll make the story short. The guards found out who it was through the camera systems, and all the lifers, which are the guys that are going to be in there forever, which in Alaska there's no death row. So you're walking around with the serial killers and murderers, and here in Washington,
in the same cell blocks,
in the same room sometimes, yes.
Regardless of what you went into prison for, even if it was a white-collar crime for embezzlement,
yes,
you're in the same cell block as.
Unfortunately, Alaska's like that, yes. So I had to learn the hard way by meeting the Hammer. He was my first haircut, and I was physically defeated at the moment, and it was scary, when I met the Hammer. But on that note, you're locked up with those guys. There's no death row. So they realize that, so they can do whatever. Josh Wade was one of them, met him. He was infamous for, he was the only one in the history of Alaska the feds jumped involved, and they were going to give him the death penalty if he didn't tell about this other case that happened a few years back. And then,
because there is a death penalty at the federal level.
Yes. Now, Josh Wade, little did anybody know he was a serial killer that killed a lot of people across the United States. And I was in there with him, and we visited for a while, and it was a big case because they finally caught him for something. And eventually he was sent to the United States down in lower 48. And matter of fact, he just passed away just a few days ago. But you just never know about who you're living with. But I mean, Alaska, like I said, does not have the death penalty. So you're in with everybody. And it's scary.
Yeah, well, like I said, the stories are graphic. I'm not going to lie to you. It's 88 pages. I've read it all in one sitting because I couldn't put it down. Why do this? I mean, when I think of people who went to prison, regardless of their circumstances behind it, and they are out, either they've served their time and they're out and they're completely free, or they're on parole, so they're still under state supervision. They want to forget the whole damn thing. They want to distance themselves as far away from being incarcerated as they could. You dove right into the deep end with this book. You address everything in here. Why do that? Was it a cleansing process, that kind of deal?
It was an accident.
What do you mean?
I was locked up. I'd been in for about 3 years. I'd already started running stuff in prison. Some of the biggest drug dealers in Alaska that were in prison knew who I was, how and why. That's a whole nother story. But I started reading the Bible and I didn't understand it, and I was mad. I mean, I wasn't the smartest kid in school. I did get A's and B's when I wanted to. I could get A's. I went to college for a little bit, and when I studied, I did very well. I just was always running with the wrong crowd. Well, I started writing to my family because that was one of the rehabilitative processes that they tell you to go through to become a member of society. That, write to your family, love the people that are going to love you when you get out, not your friends that get you in trouble, but the people that actually love you. So I started doing that. I started writing, hey, this is what I'm doing every day. I was going to school. I was taking college classes. I was taking programming, which taxpayers pay for all that stuff. I didn't understand at that time. I just was trying to do better. The judge told me, and so I started listening to the judge. And I started getting a lot of feedback. I was like, oh, so I started writing more, my daily journal. So then I started brainstorming, and I started writing the book while I was in prison, and I started getting a lot of feedback. So I wrote my first book while being in prison. Well, if you look at some of the pages, you see the guy that the FBI wants. He wasn't very nice, but we hung out a lot. Anyways, I wrote about him one day. Got on Microsoft Word, wrote a bio on him, paragraph form, handed it to him. Well, it blew up. Everybody in the prison started hearing about it, so they started coming to tell me all this stuff. At the same time, some of the guards realized that I was doing taxes. Some of the inmates weren't doing them the way they were supposed to. They were actually embezzling hundreds of thousands of dollars. By the time they found out there was a embezzlement.
Sounds like Andy Dufresne in the Shawshank Redemption.
I've heard that quite a few times.
Yeah.
But it was true. The Alaskan inmates were getting a tax fraud. You would come in trying to be nice. They would get your information. Some of the guards were helping out, and they would use their techniques and getting, by the end of it, there was an embezzlement of $750,000, and there was only 1,200 inmates that were doing it just in that one prison. So that's a lot of money but anyway, some of the inmates were coming up and saying, Shane, could you please help me? And I would do their taxes, and it was all legit. They would work, and so some of them were trying to become better members of society and use the taxpayers' money.
You're in this system in Alaska. Do the corrections officers, after a certain amount of time, go, okay, now this person here, this Shane, he is rehabilitatable. If we get to him, he's got his Bible, but if we get to him and we can say we can educate you, but when you leave the system, we have a shot with this guy to at least turn his life around and make sure he goes back out and doesn't come back in. Do the corrections officers pass judgment on the inmates in that regard, as opposed to this inmate, regardless of what he does, if he gets out, he's going to commit a crime and be right back in again in a month?
Well, see, Alaska, like I said, they're ranked number 2 in the nation, and it's called an institutional file. Basically, you have a file at the doctor's office. They write down, they talk to you, the doctor comes in, asks you about your knee if it's bad, and they write down their list. Well, unfortunately, if you look at my institutional file, I was pretty good. I mean, to where I didn't get any write-ups. They give you UAs randomly, never failed a UA. The judge told me to do this and I did it, plus quite a bit extra. And if you look at the institutional file, none of that stuff is written down. So, and then when I started going through the institutional file and I started becoming, you know, a law librarian and learning the law, I started digging in more and more and realized their system wasn't working the way they're telling people it is. So when I finally started writing letters to the Congress and started writing letters to the Supreme, you know, I started getting feedback and, you know, they were upset. So then they started moving me around a lot. So by the time I was finished doing what I was allowed to do, I'd been moved over 20-something times. I'd been moved more than any inmate in the history of Alaska. And I got sent to Colorado, that's not in my first book. So I was on Con Air. But with that question, yes, there are some correctional officers that actually care a lot. Some don't. Some of us were getting killed by some of by the guards. Some of them. There's a tape. I mean, you can look it up about it. I mean, even some of the staff that I talked to still. I mean, they know that some of the staff wasn't all that great. It was just one of those things we had to deal with. But the system is broke, and not all of the correctional officers that pay good money. A lot of the state-ran facilities are ran pretty decent. It's the private ones that...
Well, they're there to make a profit.
That's all they're there for.
Yeah, they're there to make a profit, and they're not particularly answerable to the people...
To you or anybody else.
Because even though these are private firms that are running prisons, they're still getting money from the taxpayers, and they're just cutting corners and doing whatever they can, so they're responsible to their stockholders.
Now Obama, Obama, he wrote about the prison I was in Colorado. So I didn't realize that at the time, but we ran that prison, believe it or not, and Colorado was really bad. I mean, the inmates ran the prison. There was a lot of drugs. There was a lot of sex. The staff were getting pregnant. Inmates were, I mean, it was rob, rape, and pillage there. Luckily, by the grace of the good Lord, I started reading the Bible, but it was hard though. I mean, Colorado was, I mean, there was a lot of stuff.
When you first got out of the system, what was it like? Was it hard? The first month or so, when you were no longer under supervision of anybody in the corrections department, you were literally a free man. Was it hard, or was it, I'm out, I made it, I've turned my life around, and I'm moving forward? What was that like the first month or so of being a free man?
I got out with $500. That was my forced savings, and I worked. You can look at my record. I worked every single place. The only problem I had was every time you got moved, which I was moved more times than anyone in the history of Alaska, you get dropped down to the bottom, so it took a little longer to find a job, but I always had 1 or 2 jobs. So when I got out, I had $500. I had no license, I had no phone, I didn't know where I was gonna work. But I did have a little place that through Alpha, I had to pay rent, but I had a place to stay, and there was like 5 or 6 other guys there, which wasn't my cup of tea, but it is what it is. That's all I could do. So I was nervous. I didn't realize how much things changed in 10 years. Phones,
technology,
everything.
Yeah,
everything was different.
Sure.
So, but I knew what I was taught. Hey, you got to find a job. You got to follow what they say, no matter what, even if it's wrong. I mean, or else you go back. The Bible told me that too. Listen to what they say, do as they tell you to do, just don't do as they do. Which I didn't understand, but I was learning, right? So I get a job. I started working all night long at a kind of like a Safeway over there in it was called Kenai. But it wasn't good enough for me. So I kept working, but I was like, I need more. Because I wanted to go home, I mean, I was working, I was paying my bills, they were always on me, and so I started fishing again. I love fishing. So I got a fishing job. And at the same time, I just kept pushing what the judge told me. That's all I could think about, the judge and the pre-sentence report. What the pre-sentence report dictates everything about everything. So I was scared, I was nervous. I had $500. I went and got my ID, my driver's license back. I went and got an Obama plan, which I didn't even know that existed at the time. It was like $100 I'd paid all year long. So I got that, got my license, got some food, got my job within a week. And then I was fishing within probably 2 or 3 weeks, maybe a month after that. And then all of a sudden, I mean, I had thousands of dollars again. I was working full time, but everything had changed. And I still was stuck in Alaska. They wouldn't let me go, even though they say it was okay. Anyways, my brother came down. We went fishing in the Kenai. I think that picture of us, or me, is in that book. I believe.
I can't remember. Yep, somewhere in here.
But anyways, I was in waders. I was in the Kenai.
Sure.
My brother was with me. He flew from Washington there, and yeah, it was scary. You just got to put one foot forward. And
where do people? This is a fascinating book. Again, it's only 88 pages. Not for the faint of heart. There's some pretty graphic stories in here. I'm just being straight up with you on this, but it's a fascinating story. We're almost out of time. How do people get a copy of this, Shane?
You can go to Amazon. Conviction. Unfortunately, Encouraging Words shut down. They had it. You can get it in Chelan, or you can get it in Leavenworth. I am working on trying to get a store here locally. I just was pretty faithful to Encouraging Words. So, but you can get it on Amazon, Conviction by Shane Flemons.
And there's a follow-up to this as well. This is the original book. You've written another one.
Yes, sir. And matter of fact, the guy from the military's beefing this one up. They're putting more meat into this as we speak, so it can be on Audible.
It's a fascinating insight into the penal justice system, which needs to be addressed. People go, la, 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 I don't want to deal with it, don't want to hear about it, I don't care. You will change your mind when you read this. Shane Flemons, thanks for coming by, I appreciate it. Before you leave the big city, I know you plan on moving to some other locations. Come out and see me one more time, we'll talk about the other book, all right?
I would love to.
Sounds good?
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks for being on the show, we appreciate it. And we will be right back.
Global Car Care has the best customer service in the Valley. From the moment you walk in the door, their goal is to help you stay on the road, so you can keep doing what's important to you. Global Car Care certified ASE mechanics stand behind your automotive repairs.
It's a great time to go into the medical profession. And this is the perfect place to start, because this is going to provide you that basic understanding in order to get into medical school, physical therapy school. So when you are ready to head on your career pathway, wherever it is, then you've already had some experience and say, oh, it's so cool. This is exactly what I want to do. So really, you're going to leave me with 13 college credits and a license with the state of Washington.
Still a little on the hazy side to the north of us, not really too bad in the Wenatchee Valley. Up in the Chelan area, the AQI is getting pretty close to unhealthy for sensitive groups. Obviously, the Pioneer Fire continues to burn. Same scenario, there's no place for the smoke to go. We're under the influence of a ridge of high pressure. Smoke goes up, it hits the lid, comes right back down again, and we're going to be in for some sunny and warm weather. But once again, more heat. And this is your general, I'm getting sick and tired of having to talk about it, but it's out there, so there is an elevated fire risk. We are bone dry, our relative humidity is bone dry, and a little bit of breeze too. So any fire that gets going could get going, and the fires that are burning are gonna burn for a while anyway. Just thought we'd throw it out there. From the National Weather Service, about 101, 102. It's actually cooler than yesterday. We topped off at 96 on Thursday. But we'll right back to about 100 or so for the afternoon high today. Heat advisory starts at noon today, goes until 10 o'clock on Sunday. They may extend that for a couple of days because look at the forecast. No rain, no thunder, no precipitation, just sunny and warm and downright hot with hazy conditions right through the middle of next week. This is one of the longest stretches of sunny and hot weather, even for July, that we've had in generations. And that's it for us. Have a great weekend. We'll see you Monday. Take care. Bye-bye.